I'll never forget the moment I realized that my entire family had turned their backs on me. It wasn't a huge blowout fight or anything dramatic, just a simple, quiet snub. I'm Emily, 28 years old, and for as long as I can remember, I've always been the odd one out in my family. I don't exactly fit into their picture-perfect mold. I'm not married, I don't have kids, and I'm not obsessed with the latest gossip. I guess you could say I've always been a little more independent, a little more adventurous, and maybe a little more me than they would like me to be. This particular incident happened a few months ago when my aunt, who's a bit of the matriarch in the family, casually mentioned the upcoming family reunion. She talked about how excited everyone was and how it was going to be at this gorgeous vacation spot, somewhere on the beach, with a bunch of activities planned. She even gave me the dates. I was a bit taken aback. I had no idea about any of this. I'd been talking to my family just a few weeks prior, and no one had mentioned the reunion. Still, I figured maybe I missed the invite. So, like any reasonable person would do, I asked her why I hadn't received an invitation yet. I was genuinely curious and thought there might be some mistake. I never expected her answer, though. "Oh, we didn't think you'd care," she said, almost flippantly, as though it was the most casual thing in the world. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. It wasn't even the fact that I hadn't been invited. It was the dismissive way she said it, as if my presence meant nothing to her or the rest of the family. I tried to keep my cool, but my mind was racing. I had always been the black sheep of the family, but this felt like something much worse. It felt like I was invisible. I wasn't even worth considering. The pain I felt was instant, sharp, and, honestly, a bit humiliating. But what really stung was how nonchalant she was about it. I expected her to apologize or at least offer some explanation, but no, there was nothing. Just a shrug and a "we didn't think you'd care." I stood there, stunned, my heart pounding in my chest. "Right?" I said, forcing a laugh, trying to play it off. "Well, that's fine, I guess." But inside, I was boiling. How could they do this to me? How could they just erase me from their plans like I didn't even exist? That night, after hanging up the phone, I felt a surge of anger and betrayal. I had always tried to stay connected with my family, despite their coldness toward me. I reached out for holidays, sent gifts, tried to keep the peace. But this was the last straw. I won't lie. I was hurt, but more than that, I was furious. This was my family, and they had made it clear I wasn't wanted. They hadn't even bothered to consider my feelings, to think for 1 second that maybe, just maybe, I'd want to be included. So, I decided to do something I had never done before. I was going to get back at them, in a way they would never forget. For weeks, I debated what to do. Revenge can be sweet, but I didn't want to go for some petty prank or something small. No, this needed to be big. I needed them to feel the same way I felt when they dismissed me. That's when the idea came to me, and I knew it was perfect. I booked a first-class flight to Paris. Yes, you read that right. I wasn't just going to go on any trip. I was going to take a luxury vacation, a trip of a lifetime, and I wasn't going to tell anyone in the family. I was going to post pictures of myself exploring the Eiffel Tower, dining at the best restaurants, and living it up in the City of Lights. I would make sure every single one of them knew exactly what they had done. The day I left, I felt a rush of excitement that I hadn't felt in ages. I was free. Free from their judgment, free from the disappointment they always made me feel. As the plane took off, I couldn't help but think about how this trip was more than just about seeing the world. It was about me proving that I didn't need them. I could make my own memories, live my own life, and be happy without their approval. When I landed in Paris, everything was a blur. The city was exactly how I imagined it. Beautiful, full of history, culture, and a certain magic that made me feel alive. I spent my days wandering the streets, sitting in cozy cafes, exploring art galleries, and taking in all the sights. But as I walked around, with each step I took, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change back home. It was as if I could already hear the whispers, the gossip, the realization starting to dawn on them. Emily was gone, and she was living her best life without them. For a while, I just basked in the glow of my adventure. I posted photos, captions filled with subtle hints about how I was living the life they had never given me a chance to be part of. I even posted a picture of myself at a fancy Parisian restaurant with a drink, captioned, "Not bad for someone who wouldn't care." Then, one day, the messages started coming. They were from my aunt at first, asking how I was doing. She was casual at first, but I could sense the underlying tension in her words. "We miss you," she said, but there was a hint of guilt in her tone. "I hope you're having fun." I didn't reply right away. I wanted her to sit with the discomfort, to stew in the realization that I wasn't sitting at home waiting for an invitation. Instead, I was living a dream, and I was doing it without them. The next day, my mom texted me. She wasn't as subtle. "What's going on, Emily?" she asked, clearly annoyed. "Why didn't you tell us you were going to Paris?" She tried to sound concerned, but I could feel the frustration in her words. I knew this wasn't about concern for my safety. This was about her not being in control of my life anymore. I let the message sit for a while. I wanted her to feel the tension, the space between us that had always existed but was now more evident than ever. Eventually, I replied, "I'm just living my life, Mom. Maybe you should try it sometime." That was when things started to get a little out of hand. The next few days, I started to hear things. People were talking, and I could feel the heat of their judgments even from halfway across the world. My aunt, who had once casually dismissed me, suddenly reached out again. This time, there was desperation in her voice. "Why didn't you tell us?" she demanded. "Why didn't you give us a chance to explain?" "Explain what?" I replied. "Explain why I wasn't invited? Explain why I didn't matter." She didn't respond for hours. I knew she was stewing, wondering what had happened to the Emily who always kept quiet, always went along with whatever they said. But I wasn't that person anymore. Not now, not after everything they had put me through. That night, I was dining at this quaint little bistro, feeling both empowered and a little sad. It was weird. I didn't want to let them win by making me feel sorry for myself, but the loneliness still crept in. It wasn't about the family reunion anymore. It wasn't about the trip. It was about proving to myself that I could survive without them. And I was doing it. As I scrolled through my phone, I saw a new message from my aunt, this time with a picture attached. It was a picture of the entire family, all gathered at the beach, everyone smiling, eating, and laughing together. I could almost feel the tension building, but I didn't know yet what was about to come. And then, in the middle of that picture, there was something I never expected to see. I had to zoom in to be sure, but there it was. My sister, holding my mom's wedding ring. I stared at the picture for what felt like hours. My mind was racing, but my heart was pounding. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My mom's wedding ring. The one she never took off, the one I always remembered her wearing. And now, here it was, in my sister's hand. It wasn't just some odd coincidence. It was my mom's ring, and there was no mistaking it. I sat there at the bistro, holding my phone, completely frozen. My sister, Lily, had always been a bit, well, let's just say she and I never saw eye to eye. She was the perfect daughter, in my mom's eyes, always doing exactly what she was told, always seeking approval. She married young, had kids, and lived a picture-perfect suburban life. I could never understand why Mom treated her like she could do no wrong while I was constantly being overlooked. But this felt different. This felt like something more than just sibling rivalry. This felt like a betrayal. My hands started to shake as I typed a quick message to my aunt. "Why is Lily holding Mom's wedding ring?" I hit send and stared at the screen, waiting for a response. I could feel a storm brewing inside me, an anger that was too intense to ignore. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Why would my sister do something like that? Was I wrong about the bond we had? Was she trying to take my place in the family? Or was there something I hadn't been told? The seconds stretched into minutes, and still, no response. My stomach twisted in knots. I wasn't sure whether to feel sad, betrayed, or just furious. It was like everything I thought I knew about my family was suddenly crumbling before my eyes. Finally, my aunt replied, but her message was far from reassuring. "It's just a picture, Emily. You're overthinking it." Overthinking it? No, I wasn't overthinking anything. There was something going on, something that didn't add up, and I wasn't going to let it slide. I spent the next few hours deep in thought, my mind racing. It was too much of a coincidence that my sister was holding my mom's ring at the reunion, and it made me wonder if there was more to the story. Maybe it was just a harmless gesture, but somehow, deep down, I knew it wasn't. I had been excluded from the reunion, dismissed with a casual, "We didn't think you'd care," and now this picture was thrown in my face. It felt like a sign that I had been replaced, erased, like I didn't matter anymore. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just about me. This was about how my family had always treated me. I had always felt like the outsider, the one who didn't belong, but now it felt like they were actively trying to push me out. And for what? To elevate Lily? To make her the golden child? To erase me from the picture entirely? I took a deep breath and made a decision. I wasn't going to sit back and let this happen. They thought they could just brush me aside, But I wasn't going to let that go without a fight. If they wanted to pretend like I didn't matter, then I was going to show them just how much they'd regret that. I had been on this incredible journey in Paris, living my life the way I always wanted to, without their toxic influence. But now, I wasn't just going to enjoy the city of lights. I was going to make sure they understood that I was done being their doormat. I spent the next few days letting the tension build. I kept posting pictures, showcasing how amazing my life was without them. I knew it would eat at them, especially when they saw me having the time of my life while they were stuck in their petty family drama. I even posted a picture from the Louvre with the caption, "Living my best life, even if you didn't think I'd care." But the real kicker was when I got a call from my mom. I hadn't spoken to her in days, and I wasn't sure I was ready to deal with her yet. But I picked up anyway. "Emily, we need to talk," she said, her voice tight, her words clipped. "What is this about the ring?" I knew right away she was referring to the picture I had sent to my aunt. "What do you mean?" I asked, feigning innocence. "Why are you making such a big deal out of this?" "It's just a family heirloom, and Lily was admiring it," she said, her voice taking on a defensive tone. "You're being dramatic, Emily. You've always been dramatic." Dramatic? I couldn't believe it. I had been dismissed by my family for so long, and now they were dismissing my feelings about something this big? "Mom, you're missing the point," I said, my voice shaking with frustration. "It's not about the ring. It's about everything. It's about how you and Aunt Sarah and everyone else have just decided that I'm not worth your time anymore." There was silence on the other end of the line. For a moment, I thought maybe she was actually hearing me, that maybe the walls she had built around her heart would start to come down. But then she spoke, her voice colder than I had ever heard it. "Emily, I don't know what you're trying to prove with all this. But let me tell you something. You've always made things harder than they need to be. Your father and I have done our best to raise you, but maybe you should look at the bigger picture here. You're the one pushing us away." I couldn't believe my ears. She was actually blaming me for everything. All the years of neglect, all the times they had made me feel like I was invisible, and now I was the one at fault. My heart shattered in that moment, and I knew this was it. I had given them so many chances to make things right, but now it was clear they had made their choice. But there was one thing they didn't know. While they were busy blaming me, while they were busy trying to turn the tables, I was gathering information. I had been watching, listening, and waiting for the right moment. And I was about to expose something that would make them wish they had never treated me this way. But for now, I needed to play my cards carefully. I needed to make sure they wouldn't see it coming. I needed to make sure they understood that I wasn't some naive, innocent bystander anymore. I was taking control, and this was just the beginning. The tension between us continued to grow, the cracks in our family widening. And I knew, deep down, that the next time they reached out, it would be too late. The days that followed were some of the longest of my life. I stayed in Paris, still savoring every moment of independence I had fought for. But the freedom felt bittersweet now. Every time I thought about the family reunion, about the picture with Lily holding my mom's wedding ring, a sense of betrayal settled in my chest. My aunt and mom kept trying to call, and each time I ignored them. I couldn't bring myself to speak to them, not yet. But I wasn't going to just wait around, letting the situation drag on. If they wanted a drama-free life, they were going to get it. But it would be on my terms. I spent the next few days digging. I wasn't about to just get caught up in petty family gossip and leave it at that. I wanted the truth, the full story. And I wasn't going to let them spin it any other way. It wasn't long before I started pulling at the threads, finding old documents and photos in my mom's house that didn't make sense, at least not at first. A few old letters, a strange-looking will that my mother had updated years ago, and an old diary I had forgotten about completely. I began piecing things together, connecting dots that had never made sense to me before. One night, I decided to take a deep dive into that old diary. It had been my mom's, written long before I was born. I remember she used to keep it hidden away in her closet, tucked beneath a pile of old clothes. I hadn't looked at it in years, too many painful memories attached to it. But tonight felt different. I felt like I needed to know. As I flipped through the yellowing pages, my heart raced. It was like reading a completely different side of my mom. There were entries about her early days of marriage to my father, about her hopes and dreams for her children, but also something else, something I didn't expect. The words jumped out at me. I always knew that one day I would have to choose between Emily and Lily. I froze. What did that mean? I flipped the page, hoping to find some explanation, but instead, the next entry was even more cryptic. Lily has always been the easy one. But Emily, she's a fighter. It's hard to balance both, but I'm doing my best. My hand shook as I read those words over and over. What was my mom trying to say? Was she really making this choice between us? Had I never been enough for her? Was Lily always going to be the one she chose? I slammed the diary shut, my chest tight. I was angry, hurt, confused. The whole thing felt like a sick joke. My mom had written about how she was torn between her two daughters, and I had never known. I'd always assumed we were on equal footing. But this just confirmed everything I'd felt for years. I wasn't her favorite. I was the one who was always too much. Too loud. Too emotional. Too demanding. Lily was the one who could sit quietly, follow the rules, and never rock the boat. She was the good daughter, the one who made everything easy. Tears burned at the back of my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I had come too far to crumble now. The next day, I couldn't sit still. I needed answers, but I knew I couldn't get them from my mom. She'd already made her choice. I needed to find out what was really going on, and I wasn't going to wait for her to come to me. So I did the only thing I knew would work. I went to Aunt Sarah. Aunt Sarah had always been close to my mom. She had been a constant presence in our family, but something told me she knew more than she was letting on. It was time for her to fess up. I called her up, and the conversation started off normal enough. Hey, Aunt Sarah, I was hoping to talk to you about something. About the reunion, I said, keeping my voice steady, as if everything was fine. She hesitated before responding, a slight tension in her voice. Emily, sweetie, I told you before. It's just a family thing, and we didn't think you'd be interested. I clenched my jaw. I'm interested now. There's something going on, Aunt Sarah, and I'm not stupid. What's really going on with Lily and the ring? She sighed, a long, drawn-out exhale. Emily, you don't understand. It's complicated. Your mother, she's always been so hard on herself, and things aren't what they seem. My pulse quickened. I know it's complicated, but I deserve to know the truth, Aunt Sarah. I've been kept in the dark for far too long. There was a pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing, the slight rustling of papers, maybe even the sound of her fidgeting. Finally, she spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. Your mom was going to leave your father. She was ready to leave him for someone else, someone she loved deeply. But then something happened. She found out she was pregnant with you, and that changed everything. I felt the ground shift beneath me. What do you mean, it changed everything? The man your mother loved, he wasn't a man you'd want to know. He was dangerous, Emily. He had a hold on her in a way your father never did. But when she found out she was pregnant with you, she chose to stay with your father. She thought it was the right thing to do. I was reeling. My mind couldn't catch up with what she was saying. Are you telling me that I was some kind of second choice? Aunt Sarah's voice faltered. No, Emily, it wasn't like that. But she was torn. She loved both men in different ways, and she never fully got over what she had to give up when she chose your father. You were always part of that choice. It was never just about loving you. It was about duty, about what was right. The weight of her words crushed me. I had always known there was tension, that there was something off. But this was a bombshell. It wasn't just my sister that my mother favored, it was the very idea of my existence that had come into question. I had always thought I was the one who needed to prove myself, but I never realized how deep the roots of that feeling went. I sat in silence for what felt like forever. I could hear Aunt Sarah waiting on the other end, expecting a response. But I couldn't speak. Not yet. I needed time to digest this new truth. Finally, I managed to croak out, and Lily? Does she know? Aunt Sarah paused, and I could hear the hesitation in her voice. Lily, she doesn't know everything, Emily. But she knows enough. Your mom never wanted you to know. She wanted to protect you from all of this. I was done being protected. I was done being the family secret. I took a deep breath. Thank you, Aunt Sarah. I'll talk to you later. I ended the call, feeling like the walls were closing in on me. I had been living in the shadow of my family's secrets for too long. It was time to expose them. But how? And at what cost? The days that followed were a blur. I couldn't shake the weight of Aunt Sarah's words. My entire life had been based on a lie, and the more I thought about it, the more I felt like a ghost in my own family. They had all played their parts, and I had been nothing more than an innocent bystander, unaware of the twisted game they had been playing. But I was done being a pawn. I was going to end this, even if it meant burning bridges. I booked a flight back to the States the next day. It felt like the only thing I could do, finally face my mother, confront her, and get the answers I deserved. I wasn't going to sit idly by while they continued to pretend everything was fine. There had to be some sort of reckoning, some way to make them see what they had done to me. When I landed, I went straight to my mother's house. My heart hammered in my chest, and my thoughts swirled with everything I had uncovered. I was angry, yes, but more than that, I was hurt. I needed her to understand how deep the betrayal went, not just because of the reunion, but because of the years of lies and omissions that had haunted me. The moment I stepped into the living room, my mother's face froze. She had been expecting me, but I could tell she had no idea what I knew. She tried to call a few times, but I had ignored her. "Emily," she said, her voice strained, as if unsure how to approach me. "You're back." "Yeah," I said flatly, dropping my suitcase onto the floor. "We need to talk." She took a deep breath, glancing at the floor before looking back at me, her face pale. "I've been waiting for this. I know you're upset about the reunion, but there's more to it than that." "I know," I interrupted, my voice hard. "You don't get to explain that away. I know about the man, Mom. I know you almost left Dad. I know about the choice you made. The truth is, you never wanted me, did you? I was just a second option. The right thing to do." Her face went white, and for a moment, she didn't say anything. I could see the shame in her eyes, but there was something else there too, fear. "I never wanted you to know, Emily," she said softly, her voice breaking. "It wasn't about not loving you. It was just hard. I thought that if I could keep this from you, maybe you wouldn't hate me. Maybe we could just move on like nothing happened." "Move on," I repeated, disbelief and fury welling up inside me. "Do you hear yourself? This isn't something we can just forget. You didn't just make a choice between men. You made a choice between me and your own happiness. I wasn't enough to matter until I was the right thing to do. How am I supposed to get over that, Mom?" Tears welled up in her eyes, and she stepped toward me, reaching out like she wanted to hold me. But I took a step back, not ready for her touch. I was so tired of feeling like I had to accept whatever scraps of love she gave me. "I never meant to hurt you, Emily. I was doing what I thought was best," she whispered, pleading. "You have to understand. I was young. I was confused. I understand perfectly," I snapped, cutting her off. "But that's the problem, isn't it? You were always choosing. You never stopped choosing Lily. And then there was me, always left in the background, always fighting for a place in this family." There was a long silence between us, one thick with unspoken words. My mom's face twisted with guilt, but it wasn't enough. I was done waiting for an apology that wouldn't come. I turned to leave, grabbing my bag. "I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I'm done." I didn't look back as I left her standing there. I knew this would be a turning point, but I wasn't sure yet if it was the right one. I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. So many years of trying to get it right, of trying to fit into a family that had never truly accepted me for who I was. But as I walked out the door, I felt a sense of relief. The truth had come out, finally. The toxic undercurrent of my family's dynamic was exposed for all its ugliness. I didn't need their validation anymore. I could take control of my own story. But just when I thought I was free, just when I thought I could start fresh, my phone buzzed with a message from Lily. "I heard what you said to Mom. You need to apologize. You're being selfish. This isn't just about you." I stared at the screen, my fingers trembling as I typed out a response. "No, I'm done apologizing. I'm done being the one who's always in the wrong. This is about me, and you're not going to change that." I hit send and put my phone down, walking out of my mother's house for the last time. As I stepped into the unknown, I realized something that had eluded me for years. Sometimes, cutting ties with family isn't about hating them. It's about protecting yourself from a love that isn't unconditional. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally free.